soon as it connects, Leroy, I'm going to share screen. Just want to make sure it connects to YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good. So I'm going to share our screen.
I would go off camera, Rodri, until we're ready. Yep.
Leroy, I'm going to share screen. Just want to make sure it connects to YouTube.
Zoom Interpreter Control Overview. Instrucciones para interpretación en Zoom. This message repeats in English. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen sus controles, ahí hacer clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccionar Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, en celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Announcement from Interpreter. To use the Zoom interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where your meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, it looks like a little world, and select either English or Spanish. If you are joining using the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, please press the ellipsis, the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Zoom interpreter.
Good morning. My name is Leroy Blea. You see him in his pronouns. I'm the Ending the Epidemics Program Manager with the California Department of Public Health Office of AIDS. It's my honor to welcome you and to take us through a few logistics and housekeeping for today's meeting. Next slide. This is some housekeeping and some notes for you, the virtual audience. First, this meeting is in a webinar format. Our audio and video are disabled, but you do have the ability to connect with the presenters and the content through a Q&A button. and through the chat. And so those members of the audience will be able to see your comments and questions. You'll be able to upvote questions so that you can connect more readily to each other and to the content of this webinar. If you have technical issues, just drop them in the chat and somebody will reach out to you to help you out. Also, we appreciate if there are any issues with an image or sound, let us know and we can work on the problem behind the scenes. This is a reminder that this event is being recorded and will be available on demand at a later date. As our interpreter announced, this is going to be simulcast in both Spanish and English. So if you are a Spanish speaker or an English speaker, you have the ability to select your language preference. And if you like to raise your hand and we can recognize you and take you off mute, you're able to speak your question in either Spanish or English. This is some keys to enjoying an overview to enjoying the symposium for you and for others. When you do ask questions and interact verbally, we ask you to speak slowly and clearly. And this is a note for both the presenters and for participants. If not, the facilitator will remind you and that'll be okay. Normal speech pattern is fine. Just take a breath every once in a while. We also want you to lean into the capability of Zoom. This is a virtual conference, and this is created as a virtual conference because we wanted to have the opportunity to reach all areas of California. But it's not an in-person meeting. So please show some love when you can through emojis. Allow yourself to react to the content and then information by actually placing your reactions verbally into the chat. Also, we learn as much from you as you're going to be learning from this symposium. You all arrive into this environment as experts in addressing HIV as a syndemic with hepatitis C and other STIs through a social determinants of health lens. Please let us know what your resources have been, your experience has been, if you have them to share. We're going to be developing a resource wall that will be part of the conference materials that gets shared to all attendees. We also want you to realize that this is a perfection-free zone. In our meeting and in our work, we are aligning ourselves against HIV stigma, racism, transphobia, sexism, and all the other isms that we are addressing through our integrated strategic plan. And we'll make mistakes in language, in ways that we try to be allies to each other. So if we do make those mistakes, please call each other in with the knowledge and information about how to do better. Also, we have enabled the anonymous button in the Q&A function of this meeting. That means that you're able to say a question anonymously if you need to. We may not be able to answer all questions, but we'll try. And the purpose of this meeting really is to address those large questions that we all are addressing together. And we'll try to do that. And we may not have the answer at first, but we can all approach the answer at last, of course. And so please enjoy the meeting. Now I'd like to turn to our first speaker. And let me, first of all, actually, I'm going to offer a QR code. We're going to be introducing speakers and content throughout the symposium. But if you want more detail about the speaker and more detail about the agenda, please scan this QR code and go to the conference website. This website is going to be available after the conference ends, and we'll be adding additional content there. So please continue to use that as a resource and we're building out a permanent website to host the recordings and materials after the conference is over. And that will be available in both English and Spanish. Now for a virtual land acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge that this virtual symposium is taking place throughout the unceded territory of California, home to nearly 200 tribal nations. As we begin this event, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered upon and support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown worldwide. The Native Land website offers an online platform where users can interact with maps of Indigenous lands, treaties, and languages. By entering your address, you can show and see where you're residing and where you're seeing this conference today. So we'll put that into the chat. Thank you. Next slide. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kathleen Jacobson, who will be providing some welcome remarks. Dr. Jacobson is the chief of the STD Control Branch at the California Department of Public Health, where she supports the administration, programmatic, and scientific clinical disease investigation, policy, epidemiologic, and surveillance teams for STIs and hepatitis C for Californians. She is the former chair of the California COVID-19 Testing Task Force, which rolled out thousands of testing sites and tests and rapid treatment across California. She also serves on the Disaster Medical Assistance Team for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, responding to natural and public health disasters, and is on the board of directors for the HIV Medical Association for the Infectious Disease Society of America. Kathy, it is a pleasure to introduce you, and over to you for your welcome remarks.
Great, thank you very much, Leroy. If you want to move it to the next slide, please. And good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to provide a welcome and a few opening remarks on this, the second day of our fourth annual Ending the Syndemic Symposium. This symposium is a valuable opportunity for California counties, their funded community programs, and our important partners to share best practices and innovations in serving the communities most impacted by HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs, and to help further our work to end the syndemic in California through a social determinants of health lens. I want to thank the Ending the Syndemic Symposium Planning Committee for gathering input from our partners to develop the topics for this meeting. I also want to thank the speakers who have delivered insightful talks that will help move us forward in our thinking of how to address the syndemic through a social determinants of health lens in California. More than ever, we see that addressing the social determinants of health is fundamental to affecting health outcomes. Today's presentations will be delivered in the context of the theme of economic justice. California has the fourth largest economy in the world, yet California has one of the top 10 income gaps between the rich and the poor of any state. According to the Public Policy Institute of California, African American and Latinx families make up just 1 in 8 of the families with the highest level of income in the 90th percentile, despite making up more than 4 out of every 10 families in California. The Census Bureau and Public Policy Institute of California data showed African American and Latinx families also had lower incomes overall in California compared to other racial groups. Additionally, more than 1 in 5 LGBTQ plus Californians are living in poverty. Again, according to the Public Policy Institute of California, there are many reasons for these differences, including low-paying jobs, gaps in employment due to incarceration, disparities in education, limited job opportunities, and discrimination in the labor market. These types of economic inequalities have direct implications for HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs. Many studies have demonstrated that poverty does not just increase people's risk of becoming infected with HIV, Hep C, or STIs, but it also becomes a barrier to engaging in care that could lead to life-saving treatment or cure. One study by Ibrahim's team cited in our integrated plan found that increasing the minimum the minimum wage was associated with decreased STI rates across 66 U.S. metropolitan areas. Another study by Moore et al. Found that U.S. baby boomers living in poverty were 2.7 times more likely to be living with hepatitis C than those living above the poverty line. Ending the HIV, hepatitis C, and STI syndemic will require continuing to serve people of all incomes with a focus on increasing access to care for people with low or no income. It will also require improving the economic well-being of all Californians so they have the resources they need to be healthy. We invite you all to think about how the talks today and throughout the symposium are linked to economic justice strategies that CDPH has prioritized in our strategic plan, and what else we must do to further our progress. Next slide. Our strategic plan and implementation blueprint discusses these strategies in detail. We are placing links to these documents in the chat, and we invite you to review them and use the ongoing resources we are making available to customize our implementation blueprint for your local health department. Once again, thank you for your attendance, participation and collaboration today, and your work throughout California to end the syndemic of HIV, STIs, and hepatitis C. And now, back to you, Leroy.
Thank you, Dr. Jacobson, for those remarks. And of course, we're going to be seeing Dr. Jacobson a little bit later in the program as she provides some remarks and some updates about the progress we've made related to STIs and hepatitis C. And there's just a teaser, there's good news to share, which is wonderful because we could all use some good news and outcomes and the tools that we need to actually get some information about the quality and the effectiveness of our work. So Dr. Jacobson, thank you, and we'll see you later in the program. Now we'd like to next slide, please. Great. And so it's my pleasure to introduce the theme of this, our first plenary. And this is just the general theme, research, evaluation, and economic justice. We are lucky to have a collection of amazing researchers that have a particular framework for how they're addressing more directly the connection between research evaluation and their role to get the right information to the right people in the right way so that we're able to better form our programs and our policies to address the syndemic of HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs in California. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rodri Durst-Davies, who is the director of the California HIV Research Programs. He has over 20 years of experience as an epidemiologist and behavioral scientist and a public health professional working within public, private, and nonprofit settings. It's exciting actually because Dr. Davies is just coming, or Durst-Davies is just coming off of an amazing conference that CHRP sponsored. And so we get a chance not only to hear a little bit about that conference, but to hear some of the amazing research that was presented at conference as well. Just to note, this session was designed to really to have one plenary speaker, but the amazing content that they're going to be providing today, we just needed to include more of the speakers and more of the face time with these amazing researchers. I will say that we are going to be pulling in some additional content and the images and the contact information of these researchers into the conference website after this, so you'll be able to chance to interact with them and connect with them more. Dr. Durst-Davies, over to you.
Great. Good morning, everybody. As Leroy said, my name is Rodri Durst-Davies. I'm the director of the California HIV/AIDS Research Program. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about implementation of economic justice initiatives across the state of California and what role CHRP plays in that. I am going to try to speak slowly, but anyone who's met me for longer than 5 minutes knows that I tend to talk fast. I am aware that this is being simulcast into Spanish. Also, I have invited 4 of our researchers to present their work here today, so I'm going to give some introductory remarks. Well, the agenda is, first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what CHRP is. We're going to talk about economic and social justice sort of research history, our current economic justice initiative, and then some next steps. And hopefully that'll take about 45 minutes. If we're lucky. So the first thing I'd like to start with is CHRP's mission statement is to advance transformative research across California that's going to promote the health of people living with or at risk for HIV. We were formed in 1983 through advocacy of folks like you, which told the state legislature at the time that the federal government's response to the incoming HIV pandemic was going to be insufficient. And so California needed to have its own response to the HIV pandemic in ahead of the federal government. So as you can see, since 1983, we funded about $360 million in research specific for HIV and HIV syndemics across the state. You can see that those investigations are not only to UC institutions, although the majority of it has gone to them. We also, as a statewide program, fund government institutions, nonprofits, as well as other non-UC academic institutions. And we've funded about 1,800 or so studies since we were founded. It's a very nice quote here from Marissa, the chief of the Office of AIDS. I will say there's a lot of notable firsts at CHRP. In the 80s, we were the first to have a clinical research center and a viral diagnostic lab for HIV. Those were at places like UCLA and UC Davis and UCSF. The first study to isolate HIV in the blood was a study funded by CHRP at UCLA. And we did some of the early AZT efficacy studies. In the 90s, we were doing ART adherence. We had started to lean into community-based participatory research. And then we were the first study in the entire world to investigate organ transplant among HIV-infected persons, which is now a standard of care according to the American Medical Association. In the aughts, we were doing ORA-QUIC implementation, we were doing border health, and we started our policy research centers. And in the last decade, a lot of our studies were focused on PrEP implementation, and we also were working on disparities research. Our overall program structure is we have three sort of research pillars: basic biomedical, clinical and behavioral, and policy research. But the most important thing is, even though we're an independent institution from the Office of AIDS, we do feel it's our role to help operationalizing the ending the epidemic strategies through our funded initiatives. We have an annual budget of about $8.75 million. That is through the UC General Fund. Our current portfolio is about 42 studies, about $40 million, but we will be making funding decisions in the next few months. And so that number is going to go up. And then finally, we have an 18-member advisory council made up of academics, people we call frontline staff, so people who work at health departments or clinics, and then advocates and activists who are very passionate about this field. Leroy and Marissa are both members on the advisory council, so they help us make some of the decisions that we do. I'd like to go through a little bit about our current portfolio. Right now, in our basic biomedical and translational sciences, we have 9 investigations across 2 calls. Those are looking at mechanisms of cellular and subcellular levels and HIV cure research, and those are primarily for early stage investigators. Our largest block of studies is our social behavioral implementation science. These are often collaborative awards with community-based organizations and academic institutions. There's syndemic-related investigations. We look at scalability, program development, and evaluation. As you can see, 30 investigations across 8 calls currently going on. And then our policy center, we have 2 policy centers, one at UCLA and one at UCSF. And they work with advocacy groups and other institutions to understand the impacts of policies on HIV at risk and infected populations across the state. So that's a lot of stuff. So given that context, how does CHRP help in our understanding of the impact of economic justice issues in the field of HIV? It has long been understood that economic inequality is strongly associated with disproportionately poor health outcomes. This is true in the United States as well as around the world. And it's true for a broad range of health conditions, including cancers, cardiovascular disease, sexually transmitted infections, and overall life expectancy. In 1995, there was a seminal work done by authors Link and Phelan. They were looking at issues of inequality from an epidemiologic lens. In this paper, they outlined the mechanisms at which social conditions alone can be thought of as fundamental causes of disease. They posited that a focus on proximal or individual level factors, such as your mental health or your diet or other lifestyle choices, were insufficient alone at explaining the true level of disease disparity observed in a population. They also stated that knowing a disparity exists alone is insufficient to understanding its true cause unless it's contextualized within the social settings in which it arises. So you cannot understand how disease causation works without the social structure behind it. And then their final point was that underlying social factors in and of themselves were a fundamental cause of disease due to the fact that once all of those individual level factors were taken into account and controlled for, there was still a level of inequality and disease burden that could not be explained in a population. And I think for me, the best quote in the paper was, we argue that social factors such as socioeconomic status and social support are likely fundamental causes of disease because they embody access to important resources, affect multiple disease outcomes through multiple mechanisms, and consequently maintain an association with disease even when the intervening mechanisms have changed. So much of the work that has been associated with understanding social determinants of health have some of their initial underpinnings linked to this paper, which is why I wanted to bring it up today. So based on that premise that improving individuals' social condition, such as their SES status, should have a broad impact on their overall health and potential longevity, to better understand this relationship, many economic justice interventions have been tested in the field, and most of them very successfully. I'm going to sort of highlight a few here. I'm not going to go into detail on them, but I can tell you the MinCom experiment was actually done in the 1970s, even though it was not published till 2013. And it was looking at social stigma of an annual basic income provided by the government. And the results showed that there really was no social stigma of accepting this money, even those who were resistant to it initially. The next study looked at a lump sum transfer experiment among adolescents of the Cherokee Nation. This led to a significant reduction in the prevalence of their psychiatric disorders among the adolescents in the study, a reduction which persisted into adulthood. The city of Stockton did a randomized control trial looking at universal basic income in 2000 or in 2019, and mostly it showed the very positive health and financial outcomes. Unfortunately, the experimental arm overlapped with the COVID pandemic, and so some of the results might have gotten muddied. And then there was a study in Kentucky looking at earned income tax credit being associated with reduced HIV risk burden among single mothers. And then even in the state of California here, there is the California Guaranteed Pilot Program through the Department of Social Services, which is investigating economic justice issues across the state as we speak. But still, there are many unanswered questions in the field of HIV. So in order to address that, in 2024, CHRP released an RFP entitled, Economic Justice Interventions to Address HIV and HIV to Syndemic Factors in California. To go through that, I'm going to do a little bit of the life cycle of how a grant ideas for an RFP are developed at CHRP, kind of, behind the curtain. So our advisory council meets twice a year. We meet in the springtime, and that meeting is primarily to ideate on new ideas about what we should be funding in the following year. And during this meeting, is where the idea for economic justice interventions came about. And it sort of came organically out of the conversations from some of the researchers, and I think a person who works at a community-based organization. And then our fall meeting that year, we decide of the ideated constructs, we decided which ones we're going to go forward and write an RFP about. And economic justice was one that the entire advisory council agreed that we should be exploring more of within the state. So that takes us to our December to April of 23 to 24, where we developed the RFP with our advisory council's help. Then during April to November of 24, people write their applications, we do peer review, we score things, and we take it back to the advisory council for their approval at our next meeting, and that would have been fall of 2024. And then in December of 2024 to March of 2025, we do our funding announcements, we do pre-funding, and all of these projects started in March 1st of 2024. So the projects you're going to hear about all were started this year. And in 2025, we sponsored 3 economic justice initiatives looking specifically at HIV care retention for improved patient outcomes. And those researchers are all here today to present their work. I'd like to say, before I turn it over to our researchers, I'd like to talk about some unique factors of these types of social science investigations that you have to take into account when constructing them to make sure that your outcomes and results are usable for others. So besides the normal decisions of what kind of study design you're going to have, who's your target population, what's your inclusion exclusion criteria, recruitment strategy, there are specific topics that need to be addressed. The first one being, what kind of payment are you going to give? When you mean economic justice, how do you operationalize the economic portion of it? Many studies do guaranteed basic income. This is kind of like getting a paycheck. Sometimes it does come with stipulations or conditions, but not always. Lump sum cash transfers, that's like getting a one-time bonus that people will get at one time just to see how it impacts them going forward. There's earned income tax credits. Some states have done that. These are refundable through, obviously, your taxes. And then there is a concept called contingency management that is not necessarily directly economic justice per se. It's more of a behavioral intervention, but it does use cash or services as an incentive in exchange for people engaging in pro-social behaviors such as reduced substance use or drinking or improved sexual health. Then the outcome is very important. We find that a lot of economic justice investigations kind of fall apart because their outcomes can be a bit muddy and hard to understand, given the time frame of the experiment in which they're expected to conduct. And so really answering, are these going to be proximal or distal outcomes? Are you looking at behavioral or health outcomes? These are questions that we had to address when we formed our RFP because we wanted it to be as specific as possible for the investigators so they could get reasonable and usable outcomes. And then the risk-benefit analysis, this is something that is done in any investigation. But this one has unique properties to it because there's a risk of giving direct cash to individuals. Sometimes it might impact other social services they get. Sometimes it could put them in actual harm. I have worked on research studies that had cash as incentives, and we had heard back that some people had gotten jumped or beat up or their money stolen because they knew every time they came out of this particular clinic at a certain time, they were probably going to have cash in their hand. And so that's something else you need to be sort of conscious of. And then the sustainability piece. And so we talk about two types of sustainability. There's the post-treatment transition. So if someone is going to roll off your study, how are they going to maintain their lifestyle or what they're doing based on the fact that they might be losing some of their income. And then the next one is the institutional sustainability. If an institution would like to take this on as a project, how are they going to get the money to maintain the incentive going forward? I think these are very important questions that need to be addressed. And I actually think all of our researchers here are doing quite a good job of that. And in that, I'm going to pass it over to our first researcher, which is Dr. Eric Stroholm.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Rodri. Thanks for the warm introduction. I feel very fortunate to be able to be here and to present our project titled Trans Well to you all. This is an economic justice intervention for trans and non-binary persons living with HIV in Los Angeles. I'm Dr. Eric Stroholm. I'm a professor of public health at San Diego State University. Next slide. So first I want to affectionately introduce our team here. So our team, for those of you who have worked in communities and particularly among minoritized individuals, you know how important trust is. Our team has been working with the trans community in Los Angeles, specifically with the Trans Wellness Center for the last 10 years. And so it was an awesome collaboration where we've had success on some other projects to kind of build upon for this project. So I'm a clinical psychologist. Sydney Rogers is our social worker who runs our trans economic empowerment program at the Trans Wellness Center, who will be the main point of contact for individuals in the intervention. Kim Ling Murtaugh is a behavioral economist at UCLA. Alex Dopp is our implementation scientist. He's at RAND. Chloe Apollo, I've been working with for the last decade, is our amazing research coordinator who connects with all of our clients. Carrie Nacht is my fantastic PhD student who has been working as a research assistant on this project. And then Risa Flynn at the LA LGBT Center, who is the director of research, who is our main contact with the LA LGBT Center, who's our implementation partners for this project. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. So Trans Wealth is a community-led guaranteed income pilot trial. Minoritized, gender minority individuals are disproportionately affected by HIV in Los Angeles and nationwide. We also know that gender minorities, especially those who are also racial ethnic minorities, can struggle with poor adherence to HIV medications and engagement in care. We also know that high rates of poverty and housing instability affect this community in Los Angeles. We know that folks who are gender minorities oftentimes are marginalized from traditional employment settings. And of those who are employed, about 80% report workplace discrimination or harassment. We also know that guaranteed income interventions have been shown to reduce some of these barriers to employment. We can reduce discrimination, exposure to violence, and increase pathways to work. Many of these factors are also associated with poor HIV care engagement. Guaranteed income can free up time and resources to help improve engagement in care. And so our objective is really to see if by providing this additional income, if we can improve engagement in care for the individuals in our study. As I said, the study is going to take place at the Trans Wellness Center in Los Angeles. For those of you familiar with LA, this is a Koreatown or MacArthur Park area of Los Angeles. And this setting provides many other services for trans individuals, such as housing services, legal services. They have a clothing closet, they have a food bank, they offer support groups. We actually have a trauma intervention that we are also piloting at the setting. It's an important setting, and it is run entirely by the community for the community. Next slide, please. So just an overview of our project. So we are seeking to enroll 30 individuals in this pilot. They need to identify as trans and non-binary, also be living in poverty as defined by the federal poverty level, and or be unstably housed, be virally unsuppressed at the time of enrollment, and also complete a baseline survey. Then they will meet with our trans economic empowerment coordinator for an individual session where they will receive a Trans Wealth 101 orientation to the project. They're also going to receive a holistic financial assessment. They'll set their own goals, both short and long-term goals for the project. They will choose one of 3 tracks that the Trans Economic Empowerment Program offers. Those tracks include education and certification for those that might be interested in some more education, job search and interview prep. This is help with resumes, to help people to become ready for to go into the job market and to identify some different job opportunities. And then an entrepreneurship track for those that might be interested in starting their own business. So once they've gone through this initial trans economic empowerment session, they will then be randomized to one of 2 arms. They'll either receive 6 monthly payments of $1,000, or they will receive one lump sum payment of $6,000. And we're really testing to see if there are any differences between receiving these monthly payments combined with ongoing trans economic empowerment support, or a lump sum payment when an individual might be able to do more, say fix a car or go back to school with that additional income. Then we will do follow-up assessments at 2, 4, and 6 months. And what we will collect our surveys, blood draws, we'll also conduct medical record reviews, and then we'll do some qualitative exit interviews to hear from folks firsthand how the money may or may not have been useful for them. Next slide, please.
And that's it.
That's it.
Thank you, Eric, very much. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Wei T. Chen for her project care discussion.
Okay, my name is Wei Chi Chen, and then so this is topic title is that project here is Californian access to resources for housing and economic security to promote HIV care. Our at UCLA School nursing team, including me and Dr. Coles, is a licensed social work, and Rachel, who is our staff and helping us to go through all the RRB and logistics. And we work with a community agency, APAIT, SSG team. Jerry is the lead of the directors in the APAC and SSG, and we have a research analyst that will work with us UBK to help us to recruit. Next slide, please. So the key drive for homelessness or unhoused populations, and so far the housing shortage in Los Angeles is about we still need about like close to 300,000 affordable housing needed and income insecurity because low and unstable income, especially among marginalized population, and especially in Los Angeles, the high living costs is kind of getting into the nerves of everybody. So, and homelessness or unhoused population and HIV risk, including that they face at least 3 times the risk of HIV infection. And it might be because of survival sex, using substance, or lack of access to preventative care, or there's no primary care doctor to providing care. And especially housing instability will reduce engage in HIV care and increasing the risk of behavior. Next slide, please. So our project here is study design is like we're gonna pilot randomizes a waitlist trial with 24 people living with HIV experiencing unhoused or housing instability. And we have 3 groups. One is housing first. So those people already have living in APAC supported transit housing. And another group will be only giving the unrestricted fund for 6 months, and which means that they are still on the street for 8 people, but on the wait lists of the APAC wait lists, so the APAC can help us to track those people. And then 8 more people are already in unhoused, and then adding with 8 people with that those 8 people are already in the transit housing and getting the money first. So which means that a group 1 and group 3 will technically might be stay in the same facility. However, because our study design doesn't want them to compare and say why you get the money, but I don't. So that is why in these 2 groups we'll follow them up for 12 months. But the middle groups we might just only follow 6 months because those people are still on street. We might not able to find them. Anyway, all of them will get the 1,255 per month for 6 months. So and next slide, please. So what we are going to collect is that demographic data, their income, and MoCA. MoCA is one of the assessment for cognition. In this study design, we are kind of curious whether they know how to manage their money. If their cognition is not good, well, they know how to do with this chunk of money per month. So this is why we will need this MoCA data to measure whether they know how to manage their 255 per month, and their housing status before and after, and their plan. Self-report and objective care, including the GPS on their clinic visit. If their study participant told us that they went to see the doctor on January 2nd, then we will open up the GPS on their cell phone to know whether they are really goes there. And our adherences, we will do a baseline testing in month 6 for viral load, and then qualitative interview monthly on life experience and future direction, and asking about what did they spend for those money, what did they do, anything happens. And the outcome is that we are hoping that this money can help them to see the doctor and engage the HIV care. And this is the final outcome. Next page. So these are the future implications, and hopefully this project will inform the best practice for integrating economic and housing support for people living with HIV. And this will also guide the future intervention policy, improving service of the delivery and enhance health outcome. These 2 photos are the in-transit housing that APACs are currently managers of. One is called Casa Zuma. The other one is Anti-Me's house. So that's it for my slides.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Wei T. I'm now going to turn it over to our next investigator, Dr. Paul Wesson.
Great. Thank you, Rodri, and thank you everyone for inviting me to be here today. I'm very pleased to present on behalf of my team, pictured here, our GI Boost study, which stands for Guaranteed Income to Boost HIV Care Continuity and Suppression Post-Jail Release. My name is Paul Wesson. I'm an associate professor of epidemiology and biostatistics here at UC San Francisco. I'm joined by my co-investigator, Dr. Asa Clemency Allen, who is the director of HIV and integrated services in the San Francisco County Jail. Dr. Michelle Nakpong is our head qualitative researcher. Dr. Sherry Littman is another co-investigator who has recently led a guaranteed income study focused on Black youth in the Bay Area. So she's offering her expertise on conducting this study. And Mr. Graham Hinchcliffe is our research coordinator, who will be the primary team member who will be patient-facing. Next slide, please. So I want to begin with why we are focusing on this target population of people living with HIV with criminal legal involvement. Why is this a key population in the Ending the HIV Epidemic initiative? 1 in 7 people living with HIV enter a carceral setting each year, and HIV prevalence among people with criminal legal involvement is 3 times greater than the general adult population. Now, while incarcerated, people living with HIV have access to comprehensive HIV care, which often results in achieving viral suppression at the time of release. However, we know that this achievement is tenuous because people who have been released from jail or other carceral settings also have among the lowest viral suppression rates when they are back in the community. So we know that post-incarceration linkage to care is an issue. We also know that some of the barriers to engaging in healthcare following incarceration include competing social and criminal legal related priorities, such as securing housing and employment, reinstating health insurance, and managing probation and court appointments. So these are all material challenges that serve as barriers to accessing and being retained in care. Next slide, please. So why focus on guaranteed income as an intervention? Well, this is, again, a no strings attached cash transfer program that ensures an income floor, enabling individuals to meet their essential needs with dignity and self-efficacy. We know from prior studies that cash transfers can increase expenditures on education and training, enhance food security, boost durable goods consumption, and improve overall well-being. And that people receiving these cash transfers are also less likely to use them on quote temptation goods, such as purchasing alcohol or other substances. There are a few studies on guaranteed income for people with criminal legal involvement. There was one study in the 1970s called the Living Insurance for Ex-Offenders Experiment, which provided guaranteed income to men who had previously been incarcerated in prison, and showed that this intervention was associated with reductions in recidivism. We also know from other studies that have incentivized viral suppression that having a cash incentive for good viral suppression outcomes can in fact increase the percentage of undetectable viral loads. So for these reasons, we wanted to pair this intervention of guaranteed income with people living with HIV with criminal legal involvement. Next slide, please. So our intervention is 9 months worth of guaranteed income, totaling $6,750 total. Our outcomes are linked to the HIV care cascade. So we will be testing the preliminary efficacy of the guaranteed income intervention on improving post-carceral linkage to HIV care, retention in HIV care, and viral suppression at 9 months. Our participants are at least 18 years of age, living with HIV, recently incarcerated in the San Francisco County Jail within 3 months, and qualify as very low income. Next slide, please. This is a 2-stage randomization preference trial. Patients will be randomized to one of 3 arms. One arm will receive the entire amount of guaranteed income as a lump sum payment at baseline. Another arm will receive monthly installments of $750 each month, and then the third arm will get to choose whether they want the monthly installments or the lump sum. And in that arm, we will look at the role of agency in these outcomes. Our aims are to determine the GI intervention acceptability among people living with HIV with criminal legal involvement and stakeholders, assess the feasibility of the intervention and implementation barriers and opportunities, and then finally to test the preliminary efficacy of the intervention on these HIV care cascade outcomes. We'll be comparing these results with, or our participants with historical controls of a retrospective cohort of people living with HIV with criminal legal involvement that we have from another existing study. Next slide, please. This is an overview of our timeline for the study. So we'll be taking quantitative and qualitative measurements throughout the study. We're also pairing this intervention with opt-in financial mentoring for all of our participants. So this will include budgeting, long-term and short-term planning, and addressing credit. Next slide, please. And lastly, this just refers to what Rodri had mentioned earlier on, that there are some complications with this intervention, one being the impact on public benefits that our participants may already be receiving. So this is a far pared down version of information that we will be giving our participants at enrollment for them to assess whether how the guaranteed income intervention may or may not impact some of the public benefits that they are receiving. And we will also pair them with benefits counselors who will also counsel them on their specific situation. Next slide, please. With that, I just want to, again, acknowledge my team, the vendors that we are working with, the benefits counselors who have volunteered their time to assist our participants, and then, of course, funding that we received from the California HIV Research Program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. And our last speaker is Dr. Sean Ariasaracule. I think I messed that up, Sean. Sorry. Before I pass it over to Sean, I want to say this is not necessarily an economic justice intervention. This intervention is about measurement. It comes under our portfolio of measuring the impacts of racism on the HIV epidemic in the state of California. But these are some of the important measurement issues which scientists are going to need to grapple with and program managers will need to grapple with in order to make sure that the programs get the benefits to the right individual. So all that, I'm going to pass it over to Sean.
Thank you, Rodri. And I will share from my slides so that I can go ahead and advance them.
Okay, let me see about stopping and see you can share yours.
Thank you. Hello, friends. Fantastic. Okay, do you see everything okay?
Yep, you look great.
Fantastic. Oh,
there we go. You're good now.
Okay, thank you. So this project is called Ballroom Has Something to Say, and my talk today is really focusing on creating space for ballroom culture to light the way. And thank you for starting us off today with a land acknowledgement. I wanted to briefly just express my gratitude to the Ashamin and Tongva peoples and the unceded land that UCI currently is occupying. There have been many times in my life where I've wandered these lands without a home and a house. And so I am grateful for the land having to always provide to me when in the times that I've needed it the most. So my project is focused on structural racism, and I think that it'd be nice to kind of talk about that for a moment and how it's connected to geography. Zinzi Bailey and others define structural racism as the totality of ways in which societies foster racial discrimination through mutually reinforcing systems that include housing, education, employment, earnings, benefit, credit, media, healthcare, and criminal justice. And I'm sure many of you all and your communities that you work with can name so many more structures that are a part of this totality of ways. But the totality of ways that these structures come together is often obfuscated or is invisible to us. But instead, what we see are the patterns and practices that in turn reinforce discriminatory beliefs, values, and the distribution of resources. And geography, the places and spaces that we occupy every day, geography really embodies and reflects, geography primes and sets the stage for these patterns and practices that undergird structural racism. all of this is really abstract, and I think that doing community engaged work, talking about structural racism is as it exists, these multiple levels is really challenging. So I implore you all to think about over the course of your life, how has segregation, divestment, and/or gentrification changed the places you live, work, or play in? And it's these segregation, divestment, and gentrification, it's these processes that really connect your lived experiences to structural racism. Some examples of these geographic determinants of structural racism include not having access to a trusted or affirming healthcare provider near you that you can access, not being able to find romantic or sexual partners without experiencing sexual racism in the places that you live, either in real life or on virtual spaces, as well as disparities in the quality of care in communities impacted by redlining, for example, and other local histories of structural oppression. A recent study found that in Louisiana, the median time to viral suppression in red line neighborhoods was 29 days longer than compared to non-red line neighborhoods. And this brings me to talk a little bit about the house and ballroom community, which this project is engaged with. You may know about the house and ballroom community. Shout out to legendary Mother Martha that's on the call today, my personal gay mom. And for others who are not in the know of the house and ballroom community, you may know the house and ballroom community from Madonna's song Vogue, Vogue being a dance style that originated from the house and ballroom community, or The Paris is Burning, a documentary that charts kind of the early era of the house and ballroom community in New York. You may also know the house and ballroom community from more contemporary shows like My House or Legendary, or I think more mainstream than that, Pose, that was no longer on syndication, but was really popular and a really important cultural moment. I'm a part of the house and ballroom community for the last 10 years. I started out as a parent in the House of Infinity in the San Francisco Bay Area, and now currently a member of the House of Saint Laurent in Los Angeles. You might be asking yourself why the house and ballroom community. The house and ballroom community originated and are experts in remaking spaces and spaces in resistance to structural racism. The house and ballroom community came out of standing against structural racism. And here you see a photo from a documentary called The Queen, where you see Crystal LaBeija at a drag ball in New York City in the 1960s, and her public stance and critique of the at that point, the mainstream LGBT community and how the mainstream LGBT community was enacting structural racism among trans women of color. So ballroom are experts in remaking spaces that resist structural racism. So this project is an exploratory sequential mixed method study in which the first qualitative phase will be conducting semi-structured interviews and also photo voice activities to really contextualize the lived experiences of folks in ballroom around structural racism and how structural racism comes to life in the places that they live and navigate. Those qualitative data will inform a quantitative phase where we will pilot geographic and spatial measures of structural racism using short mobile surveys on individuals' mobile phones. Here's a schematic of how we will build on our qualitative data with our quantitative phase. And we are seeking that what we hope to find is that these data can help inform our responses to HIV/STI epidemics while centering SGM culture and dynamics situated in real world spaces. So I will end on a learning lessons, not lessons learned. And that is strengthening structural literacy in our communities. Structural literacy is the ability to understand that the role of structural determinism in our everyday life is connected to the structures and the histories of our of the places that we live in today. That's really challenging to do. I don't think that, we may be stuck in a freeway culture where we're zooming by places and not really seeing and understanding the history of those places. And so structural literacy requires us to kind of time travel to acknowledge the places, to acknowledge that places and spaces are not self-evident. They're not just, they don't exist just because, or that they're benign. They're actually a product of structural racism. And so I encourage scientists to break through this jargon and translate science into real world examples. Thank you very much. And I hope that you all look to your ballroom communities to light the way as well.
Wonderful, Sean. Thank you so much. I'm going to share back my screen very quickly. And I'm just going to say that, so thank you all of the researchers for presenting your work. I think that was really important to kind of talk about how to contextualize and operationalize some of these interventions. The next step for CHRP in the field of economic justice interventions is the same as it is for all of our other interventions and all of the other topics in the Ending the Epidemic strategy. We want to disseminate findings of the relevant studies, investigate their the implementation science around them, evaluate them for their efficacy and efficiency, develop the new and creative strategies that are sustainable, and then continue to collaborate with our partners going forward to make sure that we are still in tune with the needs of the residents of the state of California around the issues of HIV and AIDS. Thank you very much. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing, and I think we have some time for Q&A, like 3 minutes. Sorry, Leroy.
We did. Well, actually, we have more than that because we're granting you an additional 5 minutes. So meaning that we will go to break at 10:05. And just a quick, that was amazing. Amazing that you were able to get that much content into the time that we allowed you. And of course, we would love to have a follow-up session where we can delve more into the outcomes and the progress of these amazing projects. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, and then of course, if you have any sort of words that you might want to share or a question that you might want to answer, or that has come, like any surprises in as you've developed this economic justice RFP and these set of projects. So one question that we have in the chat was, if for all studies, if there's any current substance use among the inclusion or exclusion criteria for those that participate.
We did not lay that out specifically, but any the researchers, Eric, Wei-T, Paul, Sean, were there a substance use element to your study?
So for the GI Boost study, substance use is not an exclusion criterion. One of our exclusion criteria are if someone has an active untreated psychosis, but other than that, participants would remain eligible.
Yeah, I would say that I worked on a contingency management intervention for active substance users who were all homeless, living on the streets of Hollywood and West Hollywood many years ago. And I will agree with Paul that pretty much active psychosis is pretty much one of the only major exclusion criteria when dealing with populations such as that. But it not necessarily doesn't have to be. I think I cut someone off.
Yes, I just want to say that Project Heroes did not have that criteria into it, because most of the people who are in the transit housing are not using any substance before they can be put into the transit housing. And for those people who are on the street and then on wait list, they will also need to be off from the substance. So as far as I understand, that all the transit housing would do the urine test before they can really move in.
And I just want to agree, we substance use is not exclusion criteria for us, and we want to make sure that the guaranteed income payments are low barrier and seen as unconditional support. But we do, by offering it in the context of a center that's offering substance use and harm reduction services, also pathways to sober living, we are hopeful that the additional income will be helpful to individuals who are seeking treatment or to reduce use.
And unless there was a particular reason for it, excluding substance use could lead to a confounding effect in your study. And from an epi perspective, it could end up biasing your results because there is an association between substance use and low SES in certain populations.
We'll also just note that the love that you're getting in the chat for individuals that are seeing colleagues that they've worked with for years and expressing appreciation of that these are the exact people that need to be doing this type of research, and the gratitude for getting that information out in real time, even before findings, but just as you're developing the concept of these studies. With that, since we have a few minutes, one of the things that I'd like to ask, given that a standard of the work that CHRP funds are community advisory boards for your projects, and we're wondering if there was anything that your community advisory board discovered and as you're designing the project, and that you changed as a result of advice from community. And if you don't have an example of that, that's fine. There's something else that we'd like to discuss. But you've demonstrated a lot of how you're thinking and you're members of the communities that you research in. So that's also, I'll just note that. Anybody want to address that?
Yeah, I can jump in. Sorry, Eric.
No, go ahead.
One of the kind of pieces that we had to really grapple with is that just kind of our language, and I alluded to this a bit around structural racism and what it really means. People experience structural racism through interpersonal experiences, and so to really kind of think about like the deeper, more existential aspects of structural racism in place, I think is really challenging. And so one of the in that struggle of trying to talk about these really challenging topics that oftentimes mean absolutely nothing and are gobbledygook to some folks, we developed these case studies and vignettes about how structural racism can impact our community's HIV and STI vulnerability, even talking about like HIV, STI vulnerability, like what does that actually mean? And so I think that we've developed like a glossary of terms and also case studies, and we hope that that will also help our communities be more discerning and also critical of the research and the work and the methods that are coming out in this space, but also able to kind of talk about structural racism in very real ways with one another.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sean. Eric, I think you wanted to address that as well.
Yeah, I just add that our community advisory board was very helpful in us at kind of outlining the design such that we weren't sure about whether or not we wanted to, quote unquote, require folks to attend any economic empowerment coursework or sessions in order to receive the payments. And our community advisory board really pushed that they should attend at least that Transwealth 101, that initial session, to set those goals and to kind of outline the study prior to receiving the initial payment. And I think that was very, very helpful. And it was really the voice of the community, really wanting other folks in the community to get as much as they possibly can out of this program.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add in the two sentences that two words that so far we haven't started the recruitment, but our community board already talking back to us that because the recent ICE activities that a lot of participants might not even really want to go out yet, but the real situation that we will see that in when we start recruitment maybe next month.
Wonderful. We have 1 minute, and obviously this did not do justice to this amazing group of leaders in the field. So, Rodri, we're going to give that minute to you for some concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to take too much time. I just want to thank all the researchers here for their important work. I always say to people, it's a privilege to be able to fund this kind of research, especially given the federal pullback in interest in HIV research generally across the United States. We are probably the only truly independent, publicly funded HIV research program left in the country right now, and we're very proud of that. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to email us at CHRP or any of the investigators. I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you about their important work. These studies are 2-year pilot studies, so at the end of 2 years, we may be exploring opportunities to continue them or seeing what another next step of an economic intervention initiative could look like. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So we are going to go ahead and ask attendees to go ahead and continue to put questions in the chat, and we'll be answering those asynchronously. Also, the Q&A button is available. All of you, thank you so much. We're going to be going to a break now. This break is going to be a period of time where you're going to be able to choose a breakout session, which is its own unique link. So there are 3 breakout sessions. So can we advance to the side where we show the 3 unique breakout sessions that you have options to? So these are breakout sessions that are going to be happening right now. They're concurrent from 10:15 to 11:15. And the link to the breakout sessions are included in the attached document that was just placed in the chat. Breakout session 1 is entitled Supporting the Trans and Gender Diverse Workforce. Breakout session 2 is entitled Rapid Art Demonstration Projects. Breakout session 3 is an HIV and aging panel, including outcomes from Project Cornerstone. Let us know if you have problems connecting to the document, and we can also place those links in the chat. Just so that you know, there is a break now. Please take that time to do a bio break, relax a little bit, get a snack. And there's going to be a monitor in this room that will be leading people to those breakout sessions if someone arrives into this room late. Thank you so much, Rodri. Thank you so much, Paul, Weitai, Eric, and Sean. Bye, everybody. This room will remain open during the break and during the breakout sessions. Rodri, I'm hopping off to go to a breakout session.
Okay, I got to go to another meeting.
Okay, bye.
You wanna dance?
Hello, everyone. I see we have a lot of folks still in this room. Just so that you know, we're currently in breakout sessions, and I'm sharing the concurrent breakout placeholder slide. So you have three options to go to the different rooms, which co-producer Rachel put in chat. You'll breakout session 1, supporting the trans and gender diverse workforce. Breakout session 2, which is rapid art demonstration projects. And breakout session 3, which is HIV and aging panel outcomes from Project Cornerstone. So if you want to head over there, that's great. Like I said, there will not be anything going on in this room, in the main session room, until plenary 5, which is at 11:30. That's going to be plenary 5, STD topics and economic justice. So again, we invite you to go to one of the breakout rooms. If you are not seeing the link that Rachel posted, and actually also Allison just posted, please use chat. Let us know. We'll be happy to assist you. I'm going to go off in the background, but so if you're, like I said, if you're in here, there is no content in this room until 11:30 this morning. Right now we are in the breakout sessions, and Allison has been putting those, the direct link to the Zoom rooms in chat. Thank you very much for coming in here. Yep, and as Allison indicated, our general session room will resume at 11:30. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We had some really great discussion in our breakout sessions. And I know that for our breakout session 1, supporting the trans and non-binary workforce, we're going to be putting some of the questions we didn't get to in the Q&A. So if some of the panelists sort of followed us over into the session, they can go ahead and answer that. And I'll say that one of the things that we'll commit to doing is combing the chat, and if there's questions that we didn't get to, that we can actually include the answers, send them to the panelists and those that participated so that we can develop some of the answers and summarize that in our post-conference proceedings. So we really do appreciate all the focus and the amazing work that was done in those 3 simultaneous breakouts. We could have done a whole seminar on the topics that were presented there. Now, we're going to be proceeding with our next plenary session, which is going to be presented by Dr. Kathy Jacobson, who provided a welcome this morning. And if those of you that did not get a chance to hear her introduction, I'm going to offer that briefly again. Dr. Kathy Jacobson is the chief of the STD Control Branch at the California Department of Public Health, where she supports the administration, programmatic, scientific, clinical, disease investigation, policy, epidemiologic, and surveillance teams for STIs and hepatitis C for Californians. She is the former chair of the California COVID-19 Task Force, which rolled out thousands of testing sites and rapid treatment sites across California. She also serves on the Disaster Medical Assistance Team for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and responding to natural and public health disasters, and is on the board of directors for the HIV Medical Association for Infectious Disease, for the Infectious Disease Society of America. Dr. Jacobson, we are happy to have you back, and we're happy for the title of your talk. Can you go to the next slide, please? And we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so thank you again, Leroy. So this morning I'll be giving you an STI, Mpox, and Hep C update. And I hope by the end of this that you would agree with us that we have a lot to celebrate in the STD Control Branch. Next slide. So we'll cover bacterial STIs, then Mpox, then Hep C, and then we'll have plenty of time, I think, at the end for discussion. Next slide. And starting with STI surveillance. And next slide. And beginning with chlamydia. Next slide. So as you can see, chlamydia incidence peaked in California in 2019, and then we saw a big decrease in 2020 as a result of the stay-at-home orders. And then chlamydia started to go up again, but never quite went back to baseline. And we believe the reasons for that are really multifactorial. First of all, chlamydia, for the most part, is an asymptomatic disease. And so individuals typically only get diagnosed when they're accessing routine healthcare and routine screening. And as you know, many folks stopped doing that during COVID. And so they've gradually been returning to their baseline routine healthcare and preventative services. So after that decline, we started to see an increase. Then it kind of leveled out or beginning around 2021, and then began to decrease again in 2023. And the leveling out in 2021, we believe, is the result of new CDPH and CDC treatment guidelines, which changed the treatment for chlamydia from a single dose of azithromycin to a week-long treatment with doxycycline. And we believe that we're likely more effectively treating chlamydia, which is decreasing the overall community burden and decreasing transmission. In addition to that, in 2023, California released the first statewide doxy-PEP recommendations in the country, more than a year before the CDC or any other state released theirs. And doxypep has been proven to be more than 70% effective in preventing chlamydia. And so that decline that begins in 2023, and I can tell you has continued into 2024, is likely a result also of the doxypep recommendations. Next slide. The vast majority of cases are in females, and that's likely due to a screening bias because of recommendations for screening in females less than 26 years of age. And then most cases are between the ages of 15 and 34. Next slide. And incidence rates are highest among Blacks, followed by Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, then Hispanics, and American Indian Alaska Natives. Next slide. Okay, so that's chlamydia. Now we're going to move to gonorrhea. Next slide. And as you can see with gonorrhea, we also saw a little bit of a decline during COVID, during those stay-at-home orders. But then we see cases begin to increase and actually exceed where they were prior to COVID. This is likely due, of course, people, even though they were staying home, they remained sexually active, so transmission continued. And then gonorrhea is more of a symptomatic disease, so folks are more likely to seek healthcare services because of the symptoms, and hence we saw a big increase in cases following the stay-at-home orders in COVID. In addition to that, in 2021, CDPH and the CDC updated their treatment recommendations for gonorrhea to included sort of a doubling of the dose of ceftriaxone to treat gonorrhea. So instead of 250 milligrams, recommendations went up to 500 milligrams. So again, like chlamydia, probably the ceftriaxone at the higher dose is being more effective in treating gonorrhea. So that probably resulted in some of those initial declines in 2021, in 2022. And then we put out our doxypep recommendations in 2023, and doxypep has been shown to be roughly 50% effective in decreasing acquisition of gonorrhea. Last, I think just to sort of put the whole pieces of the puzzle together, the fact that doxycycline is now being used to treat chlamydia, it may have also, beginning in 2021, when that change occurred, it may also have been acting a little bit sort of inadvertently as doxypep for individuals who are being treated with doxycycline for chlamydia. It could have been acting as doxypep for gonorrhea if they were being exposed during their treatment. Next slide. The vast majority of gonorrhea cases are in males, most of them between the ages of 15 and 44, although really 20 and 44 is probably where most cases occur. Next slide. And again, the highest incidence rates are in Blacks, followed by Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders, then American Indian and Alaska Native, and Hispanics. Next slide. Okay, now I'm super excited to show you these next slides about primary and secondary syphilis. So next slide. As you can see, we're seeing marked declines in primary and secondary syphilis. And much like gonorrhea, primary and secondary syphilis is symptomatic. And so even though we saw an initial decline right after the stay-at-home orders for primary and secondary syphilis, we again saw them begin to increase and overshoot where they had been prior to the COVID stay-at-home orders. Although there were no changes in treatment recommendations for primary and secondary syphilis, again, the doxypep recommendations that California put out had a significant impact between 23 and 24. and beyond. But also just to kind of paint that full picture, talking about the fact that doxycycline was being used for the treatment of chlamydia. It's also quite possible that when someone was being treated for chlamydia, if they got exposed to syphilis, that it also worked as doxypep during that time that they were taking the doxycycline for chlamydia treatment, and also played a role in the declines that we saw following 2021 as well. But what we believe is really the biggest reason why we've seen declines in primary and secondary syphilis is really the infusion of state and federal funds that have made it possible for local health jurisdictions to truly get into the community, to meet patients where they were or are in the community, whether it's in homeless encampments, other locations in the community, fast food restaurants, etc. Local health jurisdictions were finally, beginning in 2021, able to really get into the community because of the infusion of state and federal funds for disease investigators and public health nurses to really meet patients where they were and treat them there. Last, I think just also important to acknowledge during 23 to 24, and again now, there was and currently is a bicillin shortage. And I think the good news here is to acknowledge that despite this shortage, we continue to see these declines in primary and secondary syphilis. And some of that may be related to the fact that there are at least some individuals who are going to be more likely to be effectively treated for their primary or secondary syphilis with doxycycline, as opposed to being able to come in and actually get a shot. They may be more likely to just pick up their treatment in a pharmacy, as opposed to having to be able to make an appointment to be treated in clinic with a dose of bicillin. Anyway, all of it, great news. We're super excited and really proud of all of the work that everyone has done to make this possible. Next slide. And when you look at males versus females, we see similar declines. Males decreased 46% during this time period, and females 41%. So significant declines for both females and males. Next slide. So what about congenital syphilis? Does this, really have an impact on congenital syphilis? Next slide. And we are pleased to tell you, yes, we are starting to see some significant declines in congenital syphilis, although they lagged behind primary and secondary syphilis by about a year and a half. We think that makes sense. First, you have to get primary and secondary syphilis under control before you're going to begin to see declines in congenital syphilis. And I can tell you these declines continue, and we'll be actually releasing our formal 2024 report, at least part of it today, in line with the CDC's release of their report earlier today. And you'll see that these declines have continued through 2024. And I would just add, again, we also believe a big part for congenital syphilis in preventing transmission from mother to child has been because local health jurisdictions, providers, street medicine providers have been able to get in the field and treat individuals in the field where they are living or accessing services. Next slide. So just in the numbers, what did this look like? Total STIs decreased 15%, and I can tell you that that's after more than 2 decades of increases of STIs in California. Total STIs down 15%, chlamydia down 10%, gonorrhea down 25%, and total early syphilis down 44%. And I can tell you the number that we'll be reporting today is even greater than that, because this data that I'm sharing right now was we didn't have all the final data for 2024. Today we'll be reporting a 53% reduction in total early syphilis. And congenital syphilis has decreased 18%. And although you see an increase in late unknown duration syphilis, We don't have concerns about that increase because we think that that actually represents increased screening in the community, resulting in more folks being identified. And remember, late unknown duration syphilis means somebody's been infected for a year or greater than a year. So it's not somebody who acquired it just recently, but more than a year. So we're getting more of those folks identified. Next slide. Okay, so why are we seeing these decreases? And I think I've talked about a lot of it as we went through the slides, but I'm going to hone in on a few details now. Next slide. So again, CDPH released its DoxyPEP recommendations more than a year, statewide recommendations more than a year before anyone else in the country as far as states go. Oops, next slide, sorry. Yeah, and as a reminder for those of you who may or may not be aware, DoxyPEP is a single dose of doxycycline, 200 milligrams within 72 hours after condomless oral, anal, or vaginal sex. It's shown in 3 randomized controlled trials that there's more than 70% decrease in acquisition of chlamydia or syphilis and roughly a 50% reduction in gonorrhea acquisition in men who have sex with men and transgender women. And just recently, there's been 2 studies that have shown promising results as well for cisgender women. And just for a reminder for folks what CDPH's recommendations are, we recommend DoxyPEP for men who have sex with men or transgender women who have had greater than or equal to 1 bacterial STI in the past 12 months. But then we really wanted to open the door and ensure that there was equity and access. So we also offered DoxyPEP using shared decision-making with the provider to all 9 non-pregnant individuals, cisgender women and men, transgender women and men, and non-binary persons who are at increased risk for bacterial STIs, and to those who are requesting DoxyPEP, even if you're not comfortable sharing your risk factor with your provider. We want providers to be encouraged to go ahead and prescribe DoxyPEP, because usually if somebody's asking for a preventive service like DoxyPEP or HIV PrEP, even if they're not willing to share their risk factors, they likely have a risk that they're concerned about. Okay, next slide. In addition to that, in October of 2024, we released updated syphilis screening recommendations, recommending all sexually active persons between the ages of 15 and 44 years of age, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation, should be screened for syphilis at least once in their lifetime, and then offered syphilis screening annually thereafter. Next slide. Yeah, no, there, that's good. Also, that syphilis testing should be included whenever a person of any age is tested for HIV, any other STI, including Mpox. Next slide, or next, yeah. That all pregnant persons, regardless of risk behaviors and regardless of where they live, should be screened for syphilis 3 times: at the confirmation of their pregnancy, early in the 3rd trimester, and at delivery. Next slide. And all persons 15 to 44 years of age who enter a correctional facility should ideally be screened at the time of intake or as soon thereafter as possible, if it's not possible at intake. And next. And emergency departments and hospital-affiliated urgent care clinics should screen all pregnant persons for syphilis prior to discharge if the syphilis test results are not available for their current pregnancy while they're in the emergency department. Next slide. And we're excited to share with you that our Surgeon General has posted videos for this regarding the syphilis screening recommendations, both for patients and for providers. Next slide. Now, I can't emphasize enough the importance of the infusion of state and federal funds that has made getting the STIs, in particular syphilis and congenital syphilis, possible. And I know many of you have played a role in advocating for those, so we really can't thank you enough for all that you've done. This includes the STI Prevention and Collaboration Grant, the DIS Intervention Workforce Grant, the Syphilis and Congenital Syphilis Outbreak Strategy, but also I want to add here the Hepatitis C Prevention and Collaboration Grant, because for all of our grants, and I know that this is true for the Office of AIDS as well, that we have our grants use Syndemic approach so that if it's a hepatitis C grant, you can still test somebody. If you're testing for hep C, you can test them for HIV and for syphilis and for other STIs. So really using a syndemic approach. And really these funds have made it possible for locals to get into the community. Next slide. And now more than ever, I think what's really going to be important to help continue this trend, in addition to getting DoxyPEP out to those who are at risk, is using expedited partner therapy, where a provider can prescribe STI treatment for up to 5 partners of an individual who's being prescribed treatment for their STI. And then their partner can deliver that therapy to their partners. And the reason I think this is going to be really important as we move forward is because we know that a lot of patients are no longer accessing clinical services come January of this year because they're fearful of deportation or imprisonment. And so getting treatment to partners is going to be incredibly important, even if we have to do this through expedited partner therapy. Next slide. And then I've said this, I know you've heard this, but bringing services to the people, meeting people where they are at in the community has increased across the state. Folks are meeting folks in fast food and gas station restrooms, in homeless encampments, under bridges, you name it, wherever they can meet folks to test or treat them. That's what has made all the difference for syphilis and congenital syphilis. And then also the emergency department screening program. And I'm going to take a few minutes to just walk you through that program and just bring everybody up to speed on that program as well. Next slide. Next slide. As you know, in 2022, California Budget Act appropriated $15 million to strengthen emergency department testing, treatment, and navigation to ongoing care. And this has been a collaboration between the Office of AIDS and the STD Control Branch, taking a syndemic approach to this program. And CDPH contracted with Bridge to fund and support 28 emergency departments across California. And you can see in this map where those emergency departments are. Next slide. The goals of the program are to identify and immediately treat individuals to help control these epidemics statewide, to improve system capacity and link patients to ongoing care in community programs, and to use a syndemic approach to further equity and address social drivers of health. Next slide. And we have put together a robust technical assistance infrastructure. We launched the program with initially 6 webinars in a local health jurisdiction webinar, and we just recently had a 7th webinar. We have had monthly community of practices for almost 2 years now. We have done individualized emergency department technical assistance as EDs reach out and are requesting support. And then we've developed an ED resource library. Next slide. These are the webinars that we have put together so far. We had a project kickoff, then a data orientation, then what's next once an individual tests positive for any one of those diseases, created processes and procedures, really standard operating procedures to ensure patients get treated and linked to care. Then walked through some test to treat algorithms to support treatment in the emergency department at the time of diagnosis. Supported patient navigator perspectives on how they link individuals to care. And then, as I mentioned just last week, we did a sustaining your program, what to do when the funding goes away, what options are out there. Next slide. Sorry, there we go. We've had the 20 emergency department communities of practice. In these communities of practice, we facilitate emergency department to emergency department discussions, talk about best practices, barriers to implementation and potential solutions to those barriers, and how they can partner with their local health department. Next slide. Here's some examples of the resources that have been created. The one on the left is a patient education. The one in the middle is a test to treat algorithm, how to take that initial positive test and move from that to treatment right there in the emergency department. And then the last is an example of a standard operating procedure to ensure that patients successfully link to care following their emergency department visit. Next slide. And then we also did a support to local health jurisdictions, reached out to them, told them about the program, let them know who was funded in their emergency department, had ongoing technical assistance calls, and have, whenever needed, facilitated ED to local health jurisdiction collaborations to support the both the local health jurisdiction and the emergency department to ensure testing, treatment, and linkage to care. Next slide. So we just finished 28 virtual site visits, one with each of the emergency departments, and I'm pleased to share with you that all 28 emergency departments are doing routine opt-out testing for at least 2 of the 3 infections already. And almost all of the EDs are testing for all 3 of the infections, HIV, syphilis, and Hep C. From an implementation model, the majority of the EDs are testing patients who otherwise required a blood test, and so they added on to that blood test. And one of the EDs is implementing universal testing for all ED patients. And a few of the EDs that are kind of newer in their development phase are starting with testing priority populations. Next slide. Over half of the emergency departments have modified their EMRs already to support routine screening. Here's a couple examples of what that might look like in an emergency department EMR. And all of the other emergency departments are working towards this, since this is one of the milestones that are required for their ongoing funding. Next slide. And as far as treatment initiation in the emergency departments, half of the emergency departments have implemented routine treatment initiation in the ED for at least one of the 3 infections, with over 40% initiating treatment for syphilis. And on the right here, you can see our test to treat algorithm for syphilis, and over 20% have implemented for HIV. And really, this is kind of makes sense, the percent that have started implementing for syphilis, because they are very comfortable and used to using penicillin and doxycycline. So it wasn't a big leap for them to start to do test to treat for syphilis. For HIV, it's a little bit bigger leap. They have to get a little more comfortable with ruling in who can start treatment in the ED and who needs to wait for opportunistic infections to be identified before treatment can start. So that is a evolving process. All of the EDs are working towards it. And I can tell you that we've had a number just recently, a few EDs reach out to us to help us meet with them to help them get more comfortable with the idea of test to treat. And test to treat is one of the milestones that they ultimately need to reach as part of their funding. Next slide. Okay, so that kind of wraps up bacterial STIs and just a summary of where things are at with the ED testing program. Now moving to Mpox surveillance and interventions. Next slide. So as a reminder, there's two clades of Mpox. There's clade 1 and clade 2 Mpox. Clade 1 is what's responsible for the current outbreak in Central and Eastern Africa. There have been occasional travel-related cases in the US in other non-endemic countries. Sexual transmission and non-sexual transmission, such as household contact, has been the main mode of transmission of clade 1, and it has historically been associated with increased transmissibility and more severe disease. For clade 2, that's the clade that was responsible and continues to be responsible for the ongoing global outbreak that began in 2022. It's mostly associated with sexual contact, and most cases have been among gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men and their social networks. Next slide. In 2024, California averaged about 10 cases per week, and the proportion of those cases that were 2-dose vaccinated at the time that they were infected, 29% in 2023, 24% in 2024, and 36% in 2025. And there's been a total of 321 hospitalizations in California, which is less than 5% of the total clade 2 Mpox cases in California. Next slide. And on August 26, California released a health advisory about a recent rise in Mpox cases. And as you can see, from June to August, we went from 4.2 cases per week up to 13.3 cases per week. And I can tell you, although September is not done yet, that September is going to be higher. It's not uncommon for us to see these increases at this time of year as we sort of come towards the last few months of the Pride season. We do tend to see cases increase. We are pleased to say that the 2025 cases do remain lower than the 2024 cases, but we really want folks to keep Mpox on their differential diagnosis. Most of the cases that have been seen in 2025 have been in San Francisco and the Bay Area, and many have reported exposures at Pride events, bathhouses, saunas, bars, clubs, and parties. And so part of the reason for putting out this health advisory was to remind providers to consider Mpox testing for all sexually active patients who have compatible symptoms, regardless of whether or not an individual had been vaccinated or previously infected, and to screen international travelers, particularly those that have been in Central and Eastern Africa. Next slide. And now, to date, there have been 6 cases of clade 1. So now moving back to clade 1 Mpox. And just last week, Riverside reported the 6th case. It was a case in a resident who was not infectious in California during their period. So when they were infectious, they were not in the state of California, but they are a Riverside resident. All US cases have been associated with international travel to countries with confirmed or presumed community spread of clade 1, and none of the cases so far have been epi-linked. Hence, clade-specific testing is recommended for those with a history of international travel or contact to an international traveler in the previous 21 days. And most of the travel-associated cases globally, as I mentioned, have been in Central or Eastern Africa. But really important to recognize that there have also been multiple cases that have been linked to travel in the United Arab Emirates, where there may be ongoing undetected transmission. And the WHO ended their second public health emergency of international concern on September 5th. Next slide. So as part of our health alert, we had pretty much simultaneously posted updated vaccine recommendations. These are CDPH vaccine recommendations. And It's recommended for individuals who are gay, bisexual, or other men who have sex with men, are transgender, non-binary, or gender diverse, has HIV, or is taking or is eligible for HIV PrEP or DoxyPEP, was exposed to someone with Mpox in the last 14 days, is planning to travel to sub-Saharan Africa or a country with a clade 1 Mpox outbreak, and anticipates sexual or intimate contact while traveling. Anticipates attending a commercial or sex event or venue, like a sex club or a bathhouse, has a sex partner with any of the above risks, and much like DoxyPEP, requests Mpox vaccination, even if they have not disclosed any of their risks above. So we want folks to feel comfortable requesting preventative services, even if they're not comfortable sharing what their risk factors are. And we want providers to know that they have our support to offer those preventive services during those situations. Next slide. And some of the Mpox implementation that has occurred over the last year or so, CDPH funded 34 CBOs to increase Mpox vaccination uptake, outreach, and education for at-risk populations with disparate vaccination coverage. And this resulted in over 1,600 vaccines being administered. CDPH also supported event-based syndemic Mpox vaccination between May and July of 2025 for uninsured, underinsured, or those who might have had difficulty accessing commercial vaccines. This resulted in 436 vaccines being administered at 30 OptumServe sites, or 30 OptumServe events in 16 local health jurisdictions. And 16 of those events were syndemic events that included syphilis and HIV screening as part of the event. Additionally, in November of last year, CDPH identified and responded to, in collaboration with the local health jurisdiction, the first case of clade 1 Mpox introduced into the United States. We had a robust public health response in collaboration with the local health jurisdiction and their local health partners. And despite over 80 potential contacts, there were no secondary cases. Next slide. Okay, getting close. Now we're going to talk about Hep C surveillance and interventions. Next slide. So I'm excited to share with you that in California, the rate of newly reported chronic Hep C cases decreased between 2020 and 2024. Next slide. However, the most of that decline, although not all of it, is due to a decline in the rate of newly reported cases, or a decline in probable cases. Sorry, I misspoke there. And so we saw an 18% decline in confirmed cases, but a 57% decline among probable cases. And there's a reason for this. The decrease in probable cases is because CDPH in 2022 started to be able to receive HCV RNA negative results. And so when somebody had an HCV antibody positive test, when we can get those RNA negative results, we can determine if someone has either cleared or cured their infection. And so because of that, what would have been a probable case, because we didn't have the negative HCV RNA result, now has become a cleared or cured case. And so now we see a big decline in the probable cases. And further analysis will include confirmed cases only, consistent with the CDC. Next slide. And what are some of the reasons we think that we're seeing declines in hepatitis C cases, or chronic Hep C cases? Changes in drug use patterns, a shift from injection drug use to smoking, which is associated with less of a risk for transmission. Updated screening guidelines, where now all adults are recommended to be screened for hepatitis C, where previously it was only the baby boomers that were recommended. An expansion of harm reduction services, either buprenorphine or syringe services, and simplified and available hepatitis C treatment. I can't emphasize this enough. Hepatitis C treatment used to be this complex bear that we as providers were afraid to use. And now it's very straightforward. A single pill or maybe 2 pills for anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. Very simple. And I want to emphasize again the importance of the investments in preventative and public health services, which I know many of you advocated for, the HCV prevention and collaboration allocations, which again has made it possible for individuals to get into the community, to meet patients where they are in the community, in their homeless encampments, where they're sitting out in the community, as opposed to expecting them to come in to see us. Next slide. However, there is more to be done. Only 1 in 8 or 13% of people with known anti-HCV or HCV antibody positive have evidence of clearance or cure. So this is where the work really needs to be done in California now. Next slide. And fortunately, the great news is we are in a place where we can really move to test to treat, to based on that initial test to begin treatment. And this is an example of our test to treat algorithm that we provided for the emergency departments and have also shared with others, because you don't have to be in the emergency department to use this algorithm. And this is going to be even easier as the expansion and rollout of the CLIA-waived point of care Hep C RNA test becomes available, because many providers will feel more comfortable beginning this rapid treatment when they have this Hep C point of care RNA viral load test. Next slide. Now, just sort of a side on economic justice. Community health workers in promotores can now bill Medi-Cal, and that becomes incredibly important when you're talking about getting folks into the field. Or in emergency departments, ED navigators are eligible to become community health workers. So you put those two together, and you can imagine that's going to have an incredible impact on helping link folks to care if the folks that are doing that can bill Medi-Cal. Also, the disease investigation specialist workforce funds and the 9 million in ADAP rebate funds that were authorized for state support and for local disease investigation. Also incredibly important to keep this in the community work continuing. A lot of local health jurisdictions were very concerned about not being able to continue this on the ground work that they've been doing. And then the 1 million in rapid Hep C RNA tests. So again, this advocacy makes a huge difference for the locals and the individuals who are being infected, to help them access care and services. Next slide. So now I hope that I've shared with all of you, and that all of you also see reason for celebrating for syphilis, STIs, and hepatitis C, and that these decreases are very promising. However, this momentum must be sustained. While STI and hepatitis C in 2024 were lower than in 2021, they are still substantially more STIs and hepatitis C than a decade ago. The sustained decreases in STIs and hepatitis C cases in California reinforces the need for continued investments to prevent transmission, to reach patients where they are at, to test and adequately treat, and ensure that STIs and hepatitis C remain a priority in California. And with that, thank you, everyone, and happy to answer any questions if there's time. Also fine to do that electronically if that's better.
Dr. Jacobson, that was an amazing presentation and very heartening to show how in many places when we put the right tools and provide them to clients in the right way, that they respond with a lot of prevention, a lot of health-seeking behavior, basically a lot of taking control of their own health when we design programs actually to make them work for client-centered in a client-centered way. There's some great comments and questions that we want to get to. We have plenty of time for discussion, and so we will move to that as well. Before we do that, I did want to note that Ray McLean, who's the Chief of Policy and Viral Hepatitis at the California Department of Public Health STD Control Branch, is here today and has been fielding questions in the chat and is available to continue to answer those questions asynchronously, particularly where they're related to hepatitis C, and they've been answering that. Also, we have with us Jessica Frazier, who is the Program Development Section Chief at the STD Control Branch, and will be, Dr. Jacobson, speaking a couple of the questions out loud initially, and then we're going to be pulling in some additional questions as well and comments. Jessica, over to you.
Great, thank you, Leroy. All right, Dr. Jacobson, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A that I thought would be best answered live. So the first question for you is, are there concerns over increased antibiotic resistance with widespread doxypep use? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, certainly there are concerns about that. Always that's a concern anytime you're using any antibiotic. California is part of what's now called CARGOs. It used to be called GISP, EGISP, and SURGE. There used to be 3 different programs to monitor for doxycycline, or really tetracycline resistance. Tetracycline is a sister of doxycycline, resistance to gonorrhea. And so that is ongoing active monitoring that happens in California and some of the major hubs in California. We have seen an increase in tetracycline resistance to gonorrhea in California. However, when you go back and you look at the timeline, we can't link it specifically to doxypep because there's been a lot of doxycycline used in California as a result of both of the STI treatment guidelines that changed towards doxy, also because of doxypep, but also because of the bicillin shortage that resulted in marked increases in utilization of doxycycline. Plus, there's other non-STI related guidelines that recommend doxycycline as a first-line treatment. So there's been a lot of increase in doxycycline, and we have seen increases in tetracycline resistance as a result of it. What does that mean when it comes to doxypep? It means that it's important to make sure that individuals who providers are prescribing doxypep for, make sure that they share with the patient that it may not be as effective for gonorrhea as it is for chlamydia and syphilis.
Thank you. The next question asks, one of the comments that you made was around some emergency departments waiting for opportunistic infections before treating patients with HIV. Can you clarify your comment about that?
Yeah. So when you begin HIV treatment, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm an HIV provider and doc for 30 years. So it's an area that I'm quite comfortable with. And when you begin HIV treatment, there's a few opportunistic infections in which you need to rule out those opportunistic infections before you begin antiretroviral therapy, because you could trigger an IRIS, an immune reconstitution syndrome, if you begin them and you haven't ruled out and confirmed whether or not somebody has those opportunistic infections. The 3 most common are with Cryptococcus meningitis, tuberculosis, and Mycobacterium avium intracellulare. And so if you have a patient presenting with signs and symptoms that may be consistent with any one of those 3 opportunistic infections, then it's important to rule that individual out for those opportunistic infections before beginning antiretroviral therapy. So that's what I was referring to when saying we created an algorithm for emergency departments and other providers that walk a provider through determining whether or not someone might have one of those opportunistic infections. If so, they're told to hold antiretroviral therapy until they rule those individuals out for that opportunistic infection, and then they can start antiretroviral therapy following that rule out.
Great, thank you. There is an outstanding question, I think probably better answered by our colleagues at Office of AIDS around Orion White funded programs and whether they can utilize the community health worker Medi-Cal benefit.
Right. We'll get to that in just one second, Jessica. And actually, while we think about that question, so thank you so much, Jessica, for highlighting those. And I invite both Ray, Jessica, and actually anybody that's in the webinar to kind of orient on questions that might be answered. This idea of building Ryan White or having Medi-Cal programs. Well, if you have a Medi-Cal, so this benefit that Kathy mentioned or Dr. Jacobson mentioned is about building a Medi-Cal services program so that if you get reimbursed as a provider for Medi-Cal, you're able to include this activity and this type of person as a vital part of the services that you provide in Medi-Cal, and it's part of overall the way that Medi-Cal is trying to improve their services and modernize their services to be more responsive to the people that would use them. Ryan White services, when Ryan White clinics actually build their work to address both core medical services and supportive services, do have medical case management, non-medical case management as part and outreach. Just to name a few of the service categories that are provided there. So generally, the way Ryan White programs work is that they tend to build themselves out to serve clients in a way that already kind of reaches them, and they've seen the results. The viral suppression rates that have occurred for Ryan White clients has been amazing. It's approached and exceeded 90% in this last year. And so what they're trying to match are those the same results in and around those clients that are served by Medi-Cal. Now, programs can blend funding, but Ryan White is always the fund of last resort, right? So if a client becomes or moves over and becomes a Medi-Cal patient, then the idea would be that they would be served there with Medi-Cal services, including enhanced case management and other things that are being made available through CalAIM. But how they might be served by Ryan White or public health services is if they move into Medi-Cal and for some reason they're not connecting as well to their medical services. So the idea would be, and I'll pose this question to the group of people that's online and attending right now. Has anybody built a program over in their Medi-Cal system and as a Medi-Cal provider that has seen or been able to refer clients back to some of the supportive services that are available in Ryan White? Because that's one of the ways that type of programming can blend. So I'll kind of leave that there so that people can provide some input about that, how that happens at the local level. And then I'm going to pose another question, Dr. Jacobson, that kind of was posed, and that question is this: like there's a concern that was named in the chat about the concern of individuals staying away from services because they're afraid of accessing services, and how can we be sure that the decreases that we're seeing or will see in the future are not a result of somehow people staying away from services? What can we do as public health, as providers, to make sure that we're measuring the right things so that we have real outcomes and not a relic of maybe the policy environment or funding environment that we're seeing? If you have anything to say about that. And then, of course, anybody else that might want to answer that online as well.
Yeah, so the data I'm sharing today is through 2024. The data that will be released today is through 2024. Before policy changes began, totally agree that we have a lot of concerns of how much we can feel confident in the data that we get from January 2025 moving forward. We've definitely heard from folks that patients are not as comfortable accessing services. We know some patients have left the country. Others are, fearful of being deported, and so they're not accessing services until much later in the game. What can we do? I think that's one that we're all going to have to put our heads together and start to think about and figure out how we can feel confident in our data from January 25 moving forward, that it reflects ongoing decreases. If those decreases continue, that reflects reality. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry I don't have a good answer there, but that is definitely something that's on my mind is how do we feel about our data come January 25 moving forward? So yeah.
And actually we started this webinar today with the idea that not all questions can be answered today, that we're still struggling these questions. And the idea is that we're going to continue, maybe we're not going to answer it at first, but at last. And the funding and policy environment is still shifting. So we're in many ways setting ourselves up to really stop reacting and start responding in a more systematic way to a chaotic environment. So we welcome comments and questions like that. And we'd also love to hear about some of the solutions that have happened at the local level. We mentioned Ryan White. There are 8 eligible metropolitan area and transitional grant area municipalities that receive Part A funding. And at all these tables, you'll find incredible leaders and providers and people with lived experience, people that are receiving services, trying to struggle and address these same questions. Where will people go when they're afraid to have to access services? How do we continue to center people that drug user health and harm reduction? How do we continue to center people that are undocumented and that are immigrants here that are documented or not? People are afraid to access services. How are we able to continue to center and address the needs of people that are trans and gender diverse, these are kind of like, and California centers them in our plan. There's no way to hide these things in the way that and we're not trying to. But the idea is that we need to struggle with these questions, and I appreciate Dr. Jacobson that you continue to answer that even though you don't have a real sure answer. I think we're looking for being imperfect, but trying to do things and actually talking about and sharing those mistakes with each other so that we can continue to do the work that we need to. So I'm gonna, we have more time for more discussion. And so I'll pause there. Dr. Jacobs, is there anything that you, as you were developing, that surprised you in this data? It seems like there's a lot of concerted effort to move the needle. But is there anything that was surprising as you develop this and as you've seen and connected to the work? Actually, that's not a really good question. I would say that what else would you like to have addressed in your slide deck and in your presentation, but maybe didn't have time to address?
Oh yeah. Anything that surprised me. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't say anything has surprised me. Certainly early on, back when we started to see these declines, we double, triple, quadruple checked our data to make sure that everything was working well, so that it wasn't an issue with data at all, that it was real, that what we were seeing was real. We double checked with local health jurisdictions, some of the local health jurisdictions that had very high volumes of cases, to find out if they were seeing what we were seeing, making sure we were seeing the same thing, and they were reporting similar findings. So that reassured us of these declines. Yeah, I mean, is there anything that surprised me? I guess at this point, no. But yes, when we started to see this, we really, double, triple, quadrupled checked everything to make sure. But yeah, I just hope that everybody here appreciates all the work that they've done, be it in advocacy, in taking care of patients and taking care of themselves. Whatever it is that they've done to contribute to this, it's paid off. It's making a huge difference at both the individual level, the county level, the state level. It's huge. Yeah, I mean, first declines in more than 2 decades. It's tremendous. So I really just want to thank everybody for the work they've done to get us here.
That's incredible. And of course, calling out basically people that are living with HIV, living with STIs and hepatitis C, and kind of coming in when they're provided the tools to take care of their health, right? And designing those programs in that way. And I often think that yesterday we heard a lot of discussion from people with lived experience, sort of talking about their journey through their own health and empowerment, and that idea of putting our hearts and our minds and our bodies into service to ending the HIV epidemic, and now the STI epidemic and hepatitis C epidemic. We are doing a lot of the things that we need to do, and there are few people in research studies that have shown that are not engaged in at least some harm reduction, some health-seeking behavior. So that's everybody. People who use drugs, who don't use drugs, people who are of all statuses. So it's an amazing thing to feel that the partnership and the knowledge still belongs and is centered in community. I'm going to say this, that we have a little bit more time, and if people want to raise their hand, take themselves off mute. I see Tiffany puts a comment in the chat. Tiff, are you in the webinar right now? I'm not sure if you are. But I'll read this. Tiffany has stated that OA has no plans to remove trans and gender diverse people from our strategic plan and will continue to prioritize all of our programs and work. We will continue to collect all state mandated SOGI data and report to the federal level what we are required to. So there are maybe differences about what we can report to the federal government, but within California, we have been able to maintain the data and the description of our populations and all the diversity that is present in the people that are most impacted by HIV, hepatitis C, and other STIs. So that has been great and necessary. And people are wondering what happens if we're able to where that story goes, where the story of HIV, hepatitis C, and STIs goes if somehow that data is attacked. And I'll just let people know that on tomorrow, one of the sessions with Erica Pan, Dr. Erica Pan, who's the director of the CDPH, will be addressing in some ways how what will happen and what is happening with in connection with Oregon and Washington and California, in thinking about creating an alliance of guidance and data here if something happens and changes at the national level. Yes, yeah. So we appreciate our CDC and HRSA colleagues and the difficult work that they're having to do during this time. So all love to them. So I paused a little bit to see if there's any other comments or questions for Dr. Jacobson. Dr. Jacobson, you've taken us on an amazing journey through your slide deck, and we asked a lot of presenters, even though it is difficult to actually bring it into presentations, but the data actually brought a lot of hope to this symposium, and we're so happy and pleased that you were able to present it and give us some hope, because we are all interested in providing and creating a healthier policy. And this gives us more information about the effectiveness of our programs, that we can get to the right people in the right way. And so we have a whole host of amazing individuals on the line now that will take that information and transmit it to their communities and their own policymakers, and help empower their local health departments to do some similar telling of the story locally that provides some hope to the communities that are most impacted by the syndemic in California. So thank you. Please give some appreciation to Dr. Jacobson and her team. You can continue to ask questions. Of course, we have one more day of the symposium, so we're going to be moving to closing in just a minute. Thank you, Dr. Jacobson. Would you like to, Dr. Jacobson, would you like to provide any last remarks as we close this session?
Yeah, I think just that I'm thinking the thank you goes to all of you and everything you all have done. And yeah, I was excited to share this data, but this data is really all of yours and all the work that you all have done to get it to where it's at. So thank you, everybody. And yeah, thanks for having me, Leroy. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you, as always, for the wonderful partnership. And just to note, STD Control Branch and the Office of AIDS collaborated with many experts for the Ending the Syndemic plan, and we continue to implement it in partnership. And we're also here a little bit tomorrow about the integration efforts of the Office of AIDS and the STD Control Branch. So, Dr. Jacobson, we'll see you. And we know that you have a all-day retreat tomorrow, so we'll be seeing you in the evaluation that's going to be happening with the symposium. And we're grateful that you spent this time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye. All right. Now we're going to be moving into closing, and really as another wonderful day of presentations. We wanted to give you a picture of what's going to be happening tomorrow, and also just how we're handling evaluation. So one of the things that we're doing as part of the evaluation process this round is to have one evaluation that goes out on day 3. So you'll have the opportunity that is going to go out to all participants as a link during at the very end of the presentations at the end of the day. We're also going to be mailing out the evaluation right after the close of the last session of the Syndemic Symposium. And then we're going to be sending that evaluation out a few times and leaving that evaluation open for at least 2 weeks. So we want to hear from you about what we did well, what we could do better, and topics that you want to hear about in future symposiums. As our breakout sessions indicated today, and many of the comments that were made, that we could have had a separate symposium on each one of those breakouts that we had, and an hour did not do that justice. And the time that we spent with some amazing researchers this morning did not do that justice. So there's a lot of opportunities for doing more and more updates and more connection with each other as the world allows. So we are going to give you a sense of what's happening tomorrow. We are going to convene at 12 o'clock. Excuse me, I'm just going to double check that. Yeah, at noon tomorrow. And I had that kind of all keyed up as a perfection-free zone. This is evidence of that. So we are going to start with a welcome tomorrow at noon with our community co-chairs, John Paul Soto and Vivian Gallardo, who will be providing a few welcome remarks to the symposium attendees tomorrow. Just a reminder that the California Planning Group has presented the content and co-branded and sponsored this event and provided content for multiple sessions. And we are grateful for their partnership and the ability for the CPG to provide input directly to the Office of AIDS and the STD Control Branch. We are also going to have a plenary session on harm reduction and housing first, really addressing how both harm reduction and housing first are linked. And that is something that we want to let you know. If you're a public health department or a CBO or a community member, we're going to need a lot of community input during that session and questions and engagement. So there'll be 2 presentations from some amazing presenters, but we're hoping to hear a lot of stories about harm reduction and housing first actually work at the local level. We also we'll have a plenary session on supporting the viability of AIDS service organizations. So a panel of CEOs will be talking about how they continue to center their clients and their mission, even in times that are difficult, and as the policy and funding environment is changing, how they are developing prospective plans for sustainable services. And if you are a member of a community-based organization and you're in leadership, and actually we're all in leadership at this point, be able to provide some input and help in that discussion, that would be great. And finally, we're ending the day with a presentation from Dr. Erica Pan. And at this point, we'll be talking about the road ahead, including how our efforts to integrate HIV, STIs, and hepatitis C might insulate us from some of the issues that are coming down the pike and some of the ways that we can adapt to move forward. With that, I'm going to say thank you so much for attending the symposium today. And we are gratified with all the comments and the engagement and the continued participation that we see across all sessions. We are overwhelmed with the amazing input that we've gotten, and all of the information that you're providing and comments are going to be made part of the document and record of this symposium, and also to be used in the development of the update of our next integrated plan. So please take this 15, 20 minutes extra that we are providing you by ending a little early, and do some self-care, reflect on those things and people that support your work and you personally, and allow you to continue to do the amazing work that you do all the time that helps us to even get to this point of addressing the syndemic in California. So we'll see you tomorrow at noon using that same webinar link. Thank you.